Should students be allowed to befriend their teachers on social media? Should teachers be allowed to hold discussions with their students at any level on this subject matter? Of course, most of you might say yes to this, but the truth is there are dangers in doing so, and if one is not careful, it can lead to disastrous outcomes. A lot of teenagers today do not realize how serious it can be for them. Although one may think that teachers are adults and should be the ones to know better, there are times when the situation can escalate into a much worse situation. According to Julia M. DeMarzo, a 12-year-old girl named Amy Hester had been sexually abused by one of her male teachers in 1980. She claimed that her abuser had shown her some inappropriate material and that the abuse would take place multiple times at different locations, from school to when she got home after babysitting his daughter. While social media may not have been invented during that time, the fact that relationships outside of schools can lead to this should be a wake-up call to all of us. If an individual is close to an instructor or uses social media to connect with them, may think that it's harmless, they should keep in mind that if an incident like this were to occur, they should be aware that there are boundaries that need to be set so that certain acts can be prevented. Even when we were in high school, some of our teachers had told us that they could not befriend us on Facebook, even when we were close. We all have to wait until we were at least in college in order to add them. Otherwise, they would have violated a school policy. My accounting teacher, for instance, had once told me that we could only be a friend on Facebook once we graduated, and no matter how hard we tried to convince her, she would not, budge. So today, students believe that it's normal to have a relationship with their teachers or any authoritative figure. As naive as they can be, many of them can be lured into such atrocious behaviors and should always be careful. First, I'm going to discuss whether teachers should have relationships with their students, how the relationship between students and teachers have evolved, how their behaviors can have serious consequences, and ways to prevent these behaviors from happening. And hopefully by the end of my speech that you would consider the impact of online relationships between students and teachers. So to what extent should relationships between a student and his or her instructor be permitted? Relationships between teachers and students should not be acceptable even if nothing serious was going on. Nobody knows what the teacher or students have in mind, but one thing is for certain. The former may be more dangerous than you think. According to an article from Miami-Dade College, students back then did not have a lot of interactions with their teachers beyond the classroom. In fact, most of the time it would only be a conversation on topics that are relevant to their courses, be it history, grammar, or mathematics, etc. Today it seems that most students are not aware of the fact that whatever they do online can have consequences on them in the long run and can be used against them. If they're not careful, others can retrieve their information and accuse them of being in such and such an act and can ruin their lives. Since I've already talked about why teachers are not allowed to have any contact with their students, I will now move on to the history of it and how it can have an impact. Back then, teachers were there to just do their jobs. Students didn't have that kind of relationship with their teachers. What do you think started this? To find out exactly how things have changed since then, how an authoritative figure who had a lot of responsibilities to bear could all of a sudden commit such heinous acts with their students and take advantage of them, we need to realize that back then things were simpler, times were simpler, and people had more trust. Social media was not invented yet, so for them to have just 5 minutes or less interaction about their academic coursework was all they ever did. Nowadays, it seems the teachers have prolonged their conversations with their students for no good reason. For some reason, they do not know where to draw a line. They start talking to their students. The student starts to share something that sparks their interest, and then all of a sudden, the conversation goes from being academic to being intimate. Another reason could be that students are taking advantage of the fact that their teachers are either attractive or good looking and just want to be noticed. Although many students are still young and are still growing and don't think that befriending their teachers on Facebook could be something serious, well, it seems that their professors or teachers may have taken this as they're wanting to open up a relationship with each other. So for this reason, it's their fault, and it's the students' fault, and they need to understand that there's a line somewhere, and if they're going to ask for it, then really they're just setting up the trap for themselves. You may also attribute this to their teenage brain that doesn't stop developing until the age of 25, and that's when it fully matures, and hopefully they'll start to make better choices as a result. So now you know why it is not appropriate to have a relationship with someone who is much older than you, especially an authoritative figure who can have so much power over you, making you seem defenseless. Now that you know what the causes of these incidents are, I will now talk. I did not just do that. I will now talk about what we can do to prevent or limit the occurrence of these behaviors. Even though these problems do take place in our schools or outside of schools, we do know that from hearing these stories and being more aware of them that we can implement changes to help better or even implement changes to help better or even make it hard for these problems to arise. If anything, I believe that professors or teachers or anyone who is an authoritative figure should not even have any contact with their students regardless. Even if it is a platonic relationship, it should not be something that should be pursued no matter what. While teenagers may not see how serious it can be or how it can land them in trouble, they need to start thinking for themselves now. I am in no way claiming that all teens are foolish, but things have happened and it's either the adults or the students' fault. It's something that we all need to address if we want a solution to this problem. So I would suggest that the conversation with students should be strictly based upon their academics, not anything other than that. And if one of them starts to go beyond that, they need to be reported. I believe that all students and professors/teachers should both sign a form that prohibits them from having any outside of classroom contact with their students, because things can get out of hand, and we have heard way too many stories about students who later came forward to talk about how they had been abused by their professors after many years later. Even though I feel that the best thing that they could have done was to report them immediately and have them discharged from their jobs. Yeah, at times they can get away. Teachers can get away with it either by going to another district and teaching there instead. So students, do your part, stay out of trouble, and if you sense anything unusual in your way, try to diffuse the situation. Just be careful. Now that I've already talked to you about the relationship between teachers and students online, identify the problems and propose solutions for them, it's time for us to conclude. While you can agree to disagree with me on the type of relationship that a student can have with their instructors, I strongly believe that it needs to be on the subject matter at hand. That is anything that's related to your academic endeavors, not on other matters. They are, after all, your instructors and not your friends. One should not feel that by being friends with an instructor that they could get any perks from them, nor should an instructor be led to believe that their students are to be treated as if they knew them personally. They don't, and they shouldn't. Most students today do not see the consequences of their actions and their teachers' actions, how it can lead to such an immense problem. If they could just be more careful, they would be able to avoid these situations where it can leave a scar in their mind and haunt them for a long time. Now you know why it's important for us all to just keep out of trouble, to be aware of the behaviors the teens and teenagers are capable of, to know that the world has changed and how we need to make sure that measures are being implemented to ensure that students are safe from those who have other intentions in mind. So students, just be aware of the fact that although you may think you can trust someone who seems to give you all the attention you deserve, or may want to do you a favor, or maybe want to be your friend, whatever you do, everything has a way of coming back to haunt you. Regardless of your age, and for teachers who think they can get away with it, eventually you do get caught.